And we are back. And we are back. So anyway, we got some callers on the line. Let's see what they're talking about. Keith. Keith.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honor. How are you?
I told y'all I'm attorney now. Y'all need to stop with all that. But what's going on?
Yeah, but you'll always be Your Honor.
No. What's going on?
Anyway, as much as I appreciate much of what you said, I have to push back on you with the idea of like stay-at-home mom, because I mean, first of all, I've heard you on many occasions encourage women not to sacrifice their careers, that they should pursue their career goals. So I don't think it's a matter of necessarily having to choose one or the other, but you do have to establish a balance. You can certainly pursue your career and practice your career, but at the same time, you also have to practice parenting. And I think that one of the things that has happened in too many instances, people have substituted providing for parenting. They feel that as long as they provided the PlayStation and the Xbox and the nice clothes and all the other amenities, that they've done their job. But as you said, spending that time at the dinner table, spending that time together, engaging in family activities, especially during the formative years, is vitally important. So I do believe that you can do both at the same time. But I also wanted to talk about the relationship between men and women. I unfortunately grew up in an environment in which my father was physically abusive towards my mother. I mean, I saw my mother being beaten and dragged down the street and all that kind of stuff. And there's two ways I could have gone, Vonda. I could have gone the route of thinking that this is the way that you treat women.
Or you could have not been an abuser.
Or I could go the route where I was so terrified as a child that I swore that if I ever had children of my own, that they would never be witness to anything like that. Fortunately, I chose the latter of the two. I have two sons and a daughter. For my sons, I tried to be the kind of man for which, to set a good example for them. For my daughter, I tried to be the type of man to which any man who comes into her life would be measured. I want to be that standard bearer for my daughter. And so I think that you're absolutely on point when you talk about what women need to demand of the men who come into their lives. But I think that too often we spend too much time talking about the men who are not the ideal type of man, or do not exemplify the types of behavior and respect towards women that we want. We spend too much time talking about the least, what I believe is the least common denominator among men, because I do believe that there are more good men out here than there are some of these trashy type of men.
Well, here's the situation, and you got some great points. The reason that I say that I think that in retrospect I wouldn't have worked is you go to work 8 hours a day. Then you try to come home, pick your kids up, and do homework and cook. You're not in the bed until 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Depending on the kind of job, the burnout is greater. It's great. If a mother is to nurture those children, at least during the formative years, then they need to be able to sow into those children, my opinion, their time. They don't need to be under stress. Here I am. I'll give myself as an example. I've been in court all day listening to somebody, and then he put the gun in my mouth, and then he said, "Stop it, shoot her," and I'm looking at blood splattered. Then I got to leave there, pick up my kids from school, go home, do homework, cook dinner, burnt out. There was nobody pouring into me. You get what I'm saying? Somewhat, but I'm trying to make it off of fumes. But if I could have been the kind of mother where all I had to do was plan, well, what they gonna eat for lunch, what they gonna have for dinner, that wouldn't have made it so stressful. But I got through it. But what I'm saying is that I was a very frantic parent. Do this. Why you not? You know what I'm saying? Yelling this because I'm under pressure. You know, I see the difference in.
I can relate because, especially being president of the teachers union, my time was not my own, and then my wife is in the political hierarchy, I'll say, and so her time was not her own. But once we were done with the working day, our time had to be devoted to raising our
But here's the
children.
situation.
Now, I must confess, I did have an advantage, Vonda, because my mother was retired, and my mother, while we were at work, and often we both got home late, my mother took on many of those duties that you just talked about. My mother did the washing, she did the ironing, she did the cooking and everything until dementia set in. And by then, my daughter was, I think, 13, 12 or 13, and my youngest son was 18, and my oldest son was grown.
So your mother helped out with that tremendously.
That support system, but even with that, during the summer, when the kids were at home, when I home, and I might have had contracts to negotiate or whatever the case may have been, I had to make sure I cut out time for them, and my wife did the same thing.
I agree. And you do what you have to, but at the same time, ideally, if you could do that, that would be a winning thing. But what it is, the reason why most people want to have their wife work is because they want to be able to have a big house and big cars or whatever. But here's the situation. This is what you said. Although you saw your father abuse your mother, it's like an alcoholic. I'm gonna do the same thing. I ain't gonna drink at all. I'm gonna be a bum like my father. I'm gonna be a better man. But there's no in between. And let me explain what happens with many men. And I ain't a man, and I understand it. Because there's so many women out here, it's hard being a good man. It's women I know that tell me in a minute. Listen, I tell a married man, you married. Listen, that's her problem, not mine. You can come over my house anytime you want to, and I'm gonna give it to you. It's hard because you have so many women who are willing to settle for crumbs from a good man. Everybody want a good man. Just give me a piece of a man. I had a woman, he was married, okay? He had 4 children. This woman kept having babies, but he had a plant wife. She had an 18-year-old. She had 3 kids by him. They ended up, the wives got into an altercation. That's how it got before me. And what I had to let them know, that plant wife wasn't going nowhere because he was a good man. He wasn't going to walk out on his children. He had 7 children in total, 4 by his wife and 3 by this plant woman. But the reason that plant woman wanted that child, them 3 kids by him, because she knew he was a good man. She knew he was a provider, he was kind, and he was loving. But he got caught up. And I do believe that woman that worked at that plant went after him because she had an 18-year-old and she said, shoot, I want some kids. I'm going to have a baby by him because he is a good man. And she did. As a result.
You know what, Vonda?
Yes.
You know what? And chew on this for a second. And I agree with you about many of these women out here who have settled. They get involved with married men and they settle. But chew on this for a second. When you look at the number of men, and I'm going to speak specifically within our community,
okay,
among Black people specifically. When you look at the number of brothers who are in prison, you look at the number of brothers who are unemployed and unemployable. You look at the brothers who have addiction issues. You look at the brothers who are gay or bisexual. That really diminishes the pool of available quality men for Black women to choose from. And so I think as a result of that, as you said, having a piece of a man and not having to be lonely all of the time. And for those who don't want to go outside the race, it really diminishes their options. I'm one of those who believe good love is where you find it. So if a black woman has to find good love with a white man or a Native American man or an Asian man or whatever type of man, more power to her. Because
no, but wait a minute. Hold on for a minute. Wait a minute. But the problem with the black woman, I'm going to tell you, she want that good sex. And that, see, like, let me tell you something. Sex is like football. It ain't nothing but 12 minutes of actual play. Sex isn't everything. Sex is not everything. But to a young woman, she wants to be able to be in a relationship with a man that is providing a certain level of sex based on the equipment that he has. We'll be back. Thank you for your comment.
All right, Bob.